What's going on YouTube? So the Chevy Camaro is an American icon that has received a lot of positive press in this current generation. However, last year's refresh was controversial to say the least. So just 1 year later, Chevy is already switching up the design again. So did the 2020 updates help the overall package? Let's go ahead and find out. Now, of course, where we're going to start off with is the front design, since this was the area that was not received well among muscle car enthusiasts last year. And Chevy has pretty much corrected this issue. So if you remember, basically the entire front end was one large black surface, and the bow tie was moved down here to the middle. It was kind of an odd look. So what Chevy has done is reintroduce the center piece. This breaks up the space, gives you a top and a bottom, and then they also move the Chevy emblem up to the top, back to basically where it belongs. This gives it a much better look. And then as far as your headlights though, those really have not changed for 2020. They continue to be really slender, full LED lights on this model. And then down below you also have another LED accent. Now, one of your other 2020 updates is that Chevy is introducing new wheel designs this year. Now, the Camaro does come standard with 20-inch alloys on every single model, but you have at least 9 different design choices. This one here I find very attractive. Definitely has a cool contrast look. I haven't seen any Camaros with this design yet. And then as far as your actual performance elements down here, you're looking at 13.6-inch 4-piston Brembo brakes in the front, 13.3-inch ones in the back, and you also have Goodyear Eagle F1 summer tires. And then moving up from that, you have your typical Camaro branding, as well as a mirror that is heated, auto dimming, as well as having blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert if you choose the 2SS.
Now, walking around to the rear design, you are going to find that distinct signature Camaro design, most of which has to do with these fully LED taillights, which have that 2-part design. And up top, we do also have a standard wing spoiler on the SS models, in addition to these quad exhaust pipes, which are standard on the SS model. And we also have the performance exhaust system added onto that, which sounds absolutely awesome. Now, one of the disappointing things about this 2020 Camaro is that Chevy doesn't offer any of the active safety systems on this model, besides for forward collision warning, which is standard on the 2SS model. Now, do be aware that the Ford Mustang does have those active safety features, so that is going to be something that you're going to see different between the Camaro and the Mustang. But anyway, guys, that sums up the awesome exterior of this Camaro. So now let's go ahead and hop inside before we take it out on a test drive.
So on the Camaro SS, you will find standard smart entry, and if you choose one of the automatic transmission equipped models, you will also have standard remote start. Now, as far as getting inside the vehicle itself, like most General Motors vehicles, there's not a sensor behind the handle, so you just press the silver button. And then taking a look inside the cabin. As you can see, the design is as cool as ever, and we have a very nice looking color scheme here. Now, this specific example is known as ceramic white with the black contrast around it. You can also get adrenaline red, Kalahari, gray, or black with real leather if you go for the 2SS. And on the 1SS, you have cloth seats in jet black or ash gray only. And then turning over here to your door trim, it is very nicely finished. You'll see the same leather color right here on the armrest as well as above it. The top part here is covered in a leather material, and you even have real aluminum trim that runs all through here with the ambient lighting built into it, so very, very nice looking. On your 2SS, you will find standard 2-person memory seating, and of course both your windows are one-touch automatic. As far as the seats, every Camaro SS will have 8-way power adjusting seats. However, you will notice we are missing lumbar support. And then as far as the seats themselves, like I said, they are absolutely lovely. Just a beautiful design. Really love the red SS branding right in there as well. And you can also get optional Recaro seats if you want something a little bit more aggressive than these seats. Now, as far as your cabin materials, you won't see any changes for the 2020 model year. So you will continue to find a hard touch plastic across the upper part. However, down here in the middle, you do have a nice leatherette material with a color contrast stitching. Over here, you will find more of that leatherette with more color contrast stitching. And everything in here does fit together extremely well and feel very solid and well built. Alright, so now let's go ahead and get to the part you're really waiting for. Starting this guy up with the top down. Oh yeah. Alright, so in order to kind of cut down on the wind noise coming into the cabin, I'm going to go ahead and close the top and show you how that works. So it's actually very, very simple. As you expect, everything is fully automated. So we're just going to press this button right here. And you'll see the process begin. And just like that, we're finished. So it's actually a very quick process. I'd say that was probably about 15 seconds. So really fast, really efficient method. Alright, and returning back here to the gauge cluster, as you can see, it has the typical Camaro design. 2 analog gauges as well as an 8-inch reconfigurable display in the middle. And this does cycle through a ton of different information. And you can also change the design, so it's certainly a very nice setup. To go along with that, if you choose the 2SS, you will also have a color head-up display. It's a little hard to get a look at it, but as you can see, you can cycle through several different types of information, including that tachometer right there. And then coming back here to the steering wheel, the Camaro does continue to come with a very, very nice steering wheel. It is flat bottom, nicely leather wrapped, very thick rimmed, feels good in the hand. You do have the standard fare buttons, including a button for your heated steering wheel if you choose the 2SS model. And then as far as the adjustment, it is manual tilt and telescoping. Now, if you're really familiar with our reviews, you know it is time to look at interior storage, and it's going to be very quick here in the Camaro. So we lift this up here. As you can see, you have this little space right here. It does have a rubber lining, but I do believe it's probably smaller than my cell phone. You also have 2 USB ports and an aux jack inside. And then back here behind this, you have another area here. You can also option on a wireless phone charger to be in that hole. But other than that, you're just looking at your 2 cup holders, and there is no more storage up in the front. Now, checking out the shifter here, you do have real aluminum and leather. Of course, you pull back for drive if you have the automatic equipped model. Bump to the left to shift manually with the paddle shifters. And then heading into reverse, all the Camaro SS's will come with a standard backup camera, which does also have active trajectory. Now back behind the shifter, this is where you're going to find your drive mode selector. So of course, this is a very important feature of this vehicle, and you do have 4 different drive modes, including a dedicated snow and ice, as well as a track mode. And then right here is your electronic parking brake. Now moving on from that, we have one of the most interesting characteristics of this interior design, and that's the climate control. Now this is a dual zone automatic setup, but if you've seen any previous Camaro videos, you know that the temperature is adjusted right here around the vent. Definitely a very cool characteristic that some of the other Chevys, like the Blazer, have picked up. We do also have 3-stage heated seats and 3-stage ventilated seats on this 2SS model. Alright, and now that brings us up here to our audio systems. Now the standard model, that's going to come with a 6-speaker sound system, but if you choose to have the 2SS, that's where you'll get the Bose 9-speaker premium audio system. So we'll go ahead and take a sample of that. Sound quality of this system is definitely very strong. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a quick look now around the Chevy Infotainment System 3. This is, of course, the same as it is in most other General Motors vehicles, and you do have the fully updated 8-inch display on board. Now, as far as your features are concerned, this particular model does have the optional navigation system. However, even if you choose one of the lower models, you will still have both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And then scrolling over here, I do want to point out the ambient lighting system, because the Camaro does have a ton of different settings that you can choose. What I'll go ahead and do is kind of press the demo mode, and basically that changes all the ambient lighting. It just continuously switches colors just to kind of show it off. But you do have a lot of different things that are lit up, including your cup holders. Makes for a very, very cool look. And then finally, heading on up here, we do have an auto dimming mirror with the newest frameless design, as well as your HomeLink universal remote. And then on the 2SS, you can flip that, and it will also become the rear camera mirror, which is definitely helpful because the Camaro does not have great visibility, as you probably assumed. And then obviously, this being the convertible, there is not going to be a moonroof, but if you choose the coupe model, you can get a moonroof, which is something the Mustang does not allow you to do. Alright, so that's going to be it for this interior tour of the Camaro. So now I'll go ahead and let Mason check out the little bit of space back in the back.
Now obviously the rear seat is a very insignificant part about this Camaro, but I will go ahead and hop back here just real quick for reference. So in order to get back, all you have to do is look at this little lever and fold that forward, and then that does allow you access into the rear. Alright, and getting back here, you know, honestly, my first impression, especially with the top down, it's honestly not too bad back here. I have about an inch of legroom with the seat adjusted to Drew's position, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat. So this is honestly not as bad as what I would have expected. Now, I will say, if you have the top up, it's probably going to be pretty claustrophobic, especially with the headroom. And as far as the feature set here, you do have a little storage area. You do not have an armrest for your left arm here, but you know, keep in mind this is not an important part of any car in this segment. Now walking up to the trunk, in order to open it, all you have to do is locate the button under this lid here, and it will open right up. Now, obviously this is also not much of a concern for a Camaro buyer, and here in this convertible with the top down, we're going to find 7.3 cubic feet of space, which it's not horrible. Right now we have a backpack, a couple sweatshirts, and our gimbal back here, so this is not Obviously you can fit stuff back here, maybe a couple weekend bags or something like that. Not a ton of space though. If you go for the coupe model, it's going to be 9.1 cubic feet of space. And as far as how that compares to the Mustang, it's going to be 13.5 cubic feet. So you are going to be a little bit behind the Mustang in terms of space, but once again, not a concern for this Camaro. Now the passenger seat is going to be 6-way power adjusting, standard on all SS models. And in front of the passenger, you do have a glove box. Definitely not a huge glove box, but it is dampened. And up top, we do have a sun visor with a mirror. However, you do not have any lighting on this convertible model.
So, there we are. This is the SS Camaro. As you can hear by that exhaust note, which is unmistakable. And the power. Unmistakable. I mean, 60 miles an hour comes in 4 seconds, technically.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels so fast, though, no matter how much throttle application you're giving it, because there's just so much power on board. As far as your technical specifications beyond really fast, you're looking at 6.2 liter V8, 455 horsepower, and 455 pound-feet of torque. So you've got both a bunch of power and a bunch of torque. And of course, this is a two-door.
Yeah. That sound, though, it's absolutely brutal. Like, it just crackles and pops, and we do have the optional performance exhaust. It's a $995 option. You know, to be honest with you, just get it. You know, if you're gonna go for an SS, spend the extra $995 to get the performance exhaust to make it sound just ridiculous.
Speed is just so effortless.
Now we do have the 10-speed automatic in this model. The manual transmission is a 6-speed, and that's actually going to be standard on all of the models. The 10-speed is a $1,595 option. I've seen quite a few. I'd say probably, I don't know, maybe like 50% of all Camaros are probably the automatic transmission from what I've seen at our dealership. Maybe that's a little skewed, but it does perform pretty well here.
There aren't really any twisty roads around here, but we'll go ahead and talk about the steering a little bit. It's excellent, as you would expect. You know, of course, this is really a button-down chassis, a great performance vehicle. And then the steering, so responsive. I mean, really great feedback. It has just a great tight feel to it. I really like that it's just got this solid heft. You know, it both feels like, you know, just like what it should feel like for a true performance car.
And I do want to, you know, mention here that this particular tester does have the magnetic ride control, which, you know, I can tell you is not a fluke, because, you know, that was one of the first things that we noticed. I mean, after the sound and the power and all that, is just, you know, when you ride over a bump or something, you can barely feel it. And that's definitely not something that you would expect out of a typical muscle car. You know, of course, it's not focused on comfort or anything, but it does go to show you that with this magnetic ride control, you can really kind of have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it truly is. It's exceptional. I mean, it's just so smooth. This being the convertible, you know, a lot of convertible buyers might use this more as a grand tour, and this certainly can be a great grand tour with this level of comfort. Now, before we lead into the fuel economy part, I do want to mention something that I'm looking at right now, and that's right here in the gauge cluster. since this V8 does have cylinder deactivation, you can actually see it deactivate right here on the gauge cluster. So you'll see it displays V4 right now. That's saying it's running on 4 cylinders or half the cylinders, of course. You know, just to help the efficiency just a little bit. This is not far from being an efficient vehicle any way you look at it, but every little bit helps.
Yeah. And as far as the actual fuel economy rating, you're going to be looking at 16 city, 27 highway, 20 combined with the automatic for this SS. You know, which honestly, I mean, it's not great, but it's also not horrible. You know, you have 455 horsepower, you get that amazing sound. So honestly, it's not too bad a fuel economy. Now that is with the automatic transmission. If you want to go for the manual, that's actually going to reduce that down to 19 miles a gallon combined.
But overall, what can I really say about the Camaro except positive things? I mean, this vehicle is just so much fun. And I think what really strikes me about this new generation of the Camaro is that beyond being just a muscle car, you know, like they have this reputation for being a dumb muscle car, right? But this is actually a genuine performance vehicle now. The way that Chevy pairs, you know, sophisticated chassis control, great steering, you know, and then pairs it with that traditional awesome V8 engine. I mean, it truly is a great performance car, and it's going to entertain you every day that you own it.
Alright, so now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing. So for the pricings that I'm about to mention, that is for the manual transmission models. So for the 1SS Coupe, that's going to start at $37,000 even. The 1SS Convertible is $43,000. The 2SS Coupe is $42,000. And then finally you have the 2SS Convertible for $48,000. Now, as far as how this one is equipped, we do have a pretty heavily optioned one. So we have the optional magnetic ride control for $1695, 20-inch 5-spoke wheels for $1695, the 10-speed automatic transmission for $1595, the dual-mode exhaust sound, the performance one, for $995, the infotainment system with navigation, $495, white stripes, $470, and then the ceramic white interior for $195. And then all told, when you add the destination charge of $995, this particular tester as equipped comes in at a pretty steep $56,135. But, you know, let me just remind you, you know, this is not necessarily a practical decision. You know, go back to that test drive section if you're having trouble with the price, because, you know, this is clearly something that is just like something that you're going to absolutely love, and you're paying for, you know, the smile on your face that you get when you get this. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2020 Chevy Camaro 2SS Convertible. We really appreciate you watching, and if you haven't subscribed already, we'd really appreciate if you hit those buttons down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.